I'm your host, Annie Bowles, and this is News du Jour. Hey, you guys, and welcome back to the News du Jour, a calmer space to consume the news. So my aunt, who listens to this podcast regularly, is currently watching my son downstairs. So if you hear some crazy squealing in the background, it's because they're having way too much fun. I just need to give her a little shout out. My son knows her as Auntie because she has such an active role in his life that she is an auntie to him, even though technically she's his great aunt. So I love their relationship and just wanted to give her a little shout out and a thank you, because if you are a mom like me, you know any scrap of personal time that you can just focus on what you need to focus on. Today, it's the podcast, is just such a breath of fresh air and so appreciated. Also, along that same line of thinking, just really quick before we jump into the episode, I wanted to recommend a different podcast to you guys. This is not an exchange with her. She's not promoting me. I'm not being paid to promote this, but I just really appreciated this episode. It's a podcast called The Financial Feminist, and she did an episode called Building Equitable Relationships, and she has a guest on the show. And this guest just really breaks down how much labor and unseen labor, unacknowledged labor women really do in households when they are a mom. And maybe in every household, even if you're not a mom, but I think especially if you are a mom. And I think it is important whether you're a man or a woman or gay or straight or, you know, a mom, not a mom. This episode is so important because all of us have moms in our lives, and to be able to see what they are doing and just shed some light on it is so important. And I do think she provides great tools for navigating conversations with your partner about the labor of keeping up a home and the labor of parenting, and in ways that are traditionally assigned to the woman just sort of automatically, like who is going to be getting the Christmas gifts, who is going to be showing up as the tooth fairy, who is going to be packing the lunches in the morning, things like that like just typically default to the mom. I think it is just an incredible episode, and it really actually blew my mind in a lot of ways. So I highly recommend it. It's not far down in her feed. And again, that's The Financial Feminist is the name of the podcast, and the episode is Building Equitable Relationships. So for our first mini story today, actually our only mini story, Trump has come out denouncing Ron DeSantis' signing of an abortion ban in Florida. Trump called the choice a, quote, big mistake, and the law itself a, quote, terrible thing, end quote. Ron is obviously Trump's biggest rival, but this is an issue that a lot of hardcore Republicans agree upon. They want to ban abortion, period. But Trump is kind of showing his cards a bit in saying that this is a mistake. He's saying, like Nikki Haley on the debate stage, that there is a gray area for him. Either that or maybe he's full on pro-choice. I don't know. He won't say as much, but his track record certainly points to him being either fully in support of abortion or in support of some sort of abortion access in America. Yeah, I really do think that stance could stand to shake things up, because Republicans have been staunchly pro-life for so long that for more than one candidate, especially like the front runner, to be saying there's a gray area here, folks, I do think that is pretty revolutionary. And not that he has said it in so many words, but calling the bill a big mistake and a terrible thing, that is really interesting language. And he is so wildly popular among the Republican Party that is this the Republican Party turning the tide when it comes to abortion? Very interesting conversation. Anywho, for our first longer story, we're going to discuss the American hostages who were just released from Iran and all of the context there. Hunter Biden suing the IRS is our next story, then the auto strike, and then lastly, a just quick blip about Katy Perry selling her music. Let's jump in. So like I said, we're going to start with the American hostages in Iran. So if you guys remember, the U.S. made a deal with Iran for the release of American hostages not too long ago. But if you guys remember, those funds that we are going to exchange, we're going to take this roundabout journey through a few different countries and basically change hands several times in order to finally land in the hands of our adversaries. Ugh. Well, the funds have officially been released, and so have the 5 Americans being held hostage. Some of these hostages have been held for years in Evin prison, which again, we have discussed at length in our bonus episode with Erica Laban. Highly recommend listening to that and following her accounts. It's just further down in our podcast feed. But she basically breaks down what has been going on in Iran generally when the protests broke out, all of that, because her family has been deeply entrenched in the various layers of uprisings that have taken place in the country of Iran. So definitely recommend hearing her out on this topic and hearing some of the stories that she has directly from family members who spent time in Evin prison. Anywho, to get back to the specifics of the story, the hostages took off in a plane shortly before 10 a.m. Central Time yesterday, prompting U.S. leaders to then unfreeze the $6 billion in U.S. aid. Now, the U.S. has really been emphasizing that these funds are for aid to Iran, things like food and medicine for the people there, not for the government. However, activists are raising alarm bells to the contrary. Iran's president spoke with NBC Nightly News, saying that the government will use those funds basically at their own discretion. Here's exactly what he said. Quote, "This money belongs to the Islamic Republic of Iran, and naturally we will decide where to spend it wherever we need it." End quote. So that is definitely alarming language. And I think it's also just sort of a duh kind of moment, because even if they did use this money directly to put aid to the people, food, medicine, like we've talked about, then that frees up funds elsewhere in their government to be used for all the nefarious activities that they have going on. So I think at the end of the day, we all see this for what it is. We needed those hostages home, and I think President Biden was going to do whatever it took to get them back on U.S. soil. And that leads us to Hunter Biden suing the IRS. This is not a long story because we don't have a ton of information, but Hunter Biden is essentially firing back, you guys. He filed a lawsuit on Monday against the IRS for what he claims is them violating his right to privacy for sharing his confidential tax information on national television. You see, IRS agents testified before Congress and disclosed some of Hunter Biden's private tax information during these interviews. And this was broadcast, of course, on national television. And there were actually other interviews as well that were broadcast where they talked about private tax information that belonged to Hunter Biden, allegedly. Hunter's attorneys claim that he is entitled to $1,000 per disclosure, as well as further punitive damages, as some of the claims made by these IRS agents may have been false. This is what the attorneys are saying, is that some of these statements were simply untrue. The IRS declined to comment on this lawsuit as it is ongoing. However, I cannot wait for one to see how this plays out. We will definitely keep you guys posted. And for our next story, the auto strike. So in addition to the ongoing Hollywood writer strike that we talked about yesterday, An auto workers strike has also gotten underway and is now headed to its 4th day. Workers for companies like General Motors and Ford are not working right now because they are looking for a 36% pay raise over 4 years, an end to the different tiers in wages. So basically, like right now, the way it's set up, there are these tiers. And when you start out working for one of these plants, you make less than people who've been there for a while. So it's almost sort of like, what's it called? When teachers have seniority, I guess. Anyway, they don't want the tiers anymore. They want someone on their first day to be getting paid as much as someone who's worked there for years. They also want a 32-hour work week, but with 40 hours of pay, pensions, and other benefits that they don't currently have, and much more. Honestly, there is not enough time in this podcast episode to go into everything, but that is the general, situation. Wages are number one. That's their main focus, but there are a lot of other things that they're asking for in this strike. This strike has been a long time coming, you guys, and it involves several different unions and several different plants. It is a coordinated effort, and it could really shake up this industry that is already basically being shaken up by electric vehicles. Operations at some plants have come to a complete halt, and layoffs in the hundreds have occurred due to the strike. So there's a lot at play here, and we'll definitely keep you guys posted on how it plays out, but this could get kind of intense, and we have 2 different strikes going on, so we'll keep our ear to the ground and keep you guys informed. And for our last story today, this is just a quick little blip on this, but Katy Perry sells all her music. So Katy Perry has just followed in the footsteps of other major artists as of late who have sold their music, like Justin Bieber, Keith Urban, Bruce Springsteen. She sold her entire music catalog to Limitless Music for a reported $225 million. She sold 5 albums in total with famous songs including Teenage Dream, Firework, and Dark Horse. She has had a significant influence on pop culture, and this is a beautiful end to a great career. Congrats, Katy. And that is the news du jour. Today, I wanted to leave you guys with the quote, "The more I think it over, the more I feel there is nothing truly more artistic than to love people." If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe on whatever podcast platform you use to listen. A rate and review or shout out on social media would mean the world to us and help us be able to keep creating the news du jour. But the best way to support all of our work is to become a patron at www.patreon.com/sugarfreemedia. You can also follow us on social media under sugarfreemedia.co on Instagram and just sugarfreemedia, all one word, on TikTok. Any little noises you may hear in the background are my rescue pup. He has a little separation anxiety and always records with me. We appreciate you listening and look forward to telling you about the news again next time on News du Jour. Broadcasting from Oklahoma.